Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, thanks to an excellent write-in topic of how about hydrogen as a fuel source, we decided to expand on that and we're looking at alternative vehicle fuel.
I think that's a very, very accurate way to describe that because, like, when we thought of hydrogen, I was like, this stuff's just gonna blow up. We're gonna have to do like the Hindenburg, and
Ooh.
that's all we were gonna talk about, and this is gonna be like a 10-minute episode. But then I had the genius idea of combining it with other alternative fuels.
Most of your ideas are genius, but this
Genius.
one was a cut above the rest.
So, James, here's what we're not talking about.
Ooh, let's talk about
We
what
are
we're not
not
talking
talking
about.
about gas. We are not talking about diesel, and we are not talking about battery powered cars.
Okay.
So Tesla is out, diesel is out. So this is purely like things that are, I'll say, outside of the norm for vehicle fuels.
Think how
On the
quickly
fringe.
Think how quickly electric cars. I know, we've done a whole thing about how they were a thing in the past, but of recent time, they've become so mainstream that we're not even considering them as an alternative vehicle fuel anymore.
Did you ever see that? It's a graphic that shows like the company value of all of the motor
Oh,
vehicle
goodness. Yeah. And
companies.
Tesla just going.
And it's just, and it was like Ford, GM, Toyota, Volkswagen, all those, and then they're moving back and forth, and all of a sudden you see Tesla at the bottom, like back in like 2014, and then all of a sudden it just goes and then it's like all of them combined aren't even worth the value.
I saw something the other day. I think it said, I don't know if it was the top 7 or the top 7 American automotive brands combined now are valued at what Tesla is worth,
Yeah.
which it hurts my brain.
Do you
But-
do you envision, James, that whether it's a Tesla or one of these other alternative fuel, do you think you would ever own an alternative fuel vehicle, or do you think you're going to be a gas diesel kind of person?
I mean, my truck says I probably will be, but I could see myself in a Tesla or something. Yeah, I mean,
I could see you in a Tesla. I could.
hopefully I live a long time, so a lot of these other options become available.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll just die tomorrow, so who knows? But I
There
could
is
see
that.
myself driving a Tesla.
I could too.
Luke, vehicles that operate primarily on gasoline or diesel have historically accounted for 99% of car and passenger truck sales, which is a lot.
It is.
But like we just were mentioning, a lot of electric cars are starting to show up, but also something that might be a little more familiar to us, even if we don't know it. A lot of our vehicles can now operate on alternative fuels like ethanol or natural gas.
Mhm.
And there's like millions of vehicles that are out there already that can operate on flex fuel, which is like that E85 stuff that
Yep.
you see at the gas station. It's a mixture of about 85% ethanol and 15% gasoline. So that's pretty interesting in
Yeah.
my mind. Also, I wanted to throw this out there. I'm
Shoot.
not here to debate oil is good or bad, electric is good or bad. Think of like the process of making this. What about the disposal? None of that. I don't care. I'm just here to kind of put out here's the ones that are out there. Maybe there are some impacts, good or bad, that we can mention, but I'm not here for some sort of like political debate.
I get it, James.
Also, one last fun fact before I throw it over to you. Brazil is the world's leader in flex fuel car sales. Who would have guessed?
Really?
I think maybe it. No, that's
I would bet it
baseless claim.
I would bet it has. I think I saw something where the reason why that was because their ability to grow the corn crop required for the
Oh, okay.
E85, because I think it's predominantly E85 for the flex
Probably.
fuel that they're using. So
Mhm.
okay,
Makes
so
sense.
so let's tackle these in the coolest, in my opinion, versus like
Wow.
stupidest order. And
Okay.
I think you're gonna have a couple stupid ones at the end. We'll see.
We don't use that word in my
We don't.
house.
Unintelligent.
Okay.
So this first one is probably the coolest one, and I didn't know very little about. So this one is hydrogen cars.
Hydrogen cars.
So technically, this is an electric vehicle. I cheated a little bit and included this one, but it's electric in a different way.
It's
So
electric.
boogie woogie woogie woo. So Teslas are electric, but they work on battery technology. So they store power, anode, diode, yada, 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 produces electricity, stores it, and then you got to charge it up, and it takes forever to charge. Hydrogen fuel cells work typically. What happens is there's a reaction typically between hydrogen and oxygen whenever they combine, and they produce electrical energy and harmless water vapor. They always talk about, the tailpipe just drips water, and that's the only thing that happens after that reaction. And the cool thing about hydrogen is you don't sit there and fill up for, an hour and a half to get a full charge, even though it is considered a fuel cell. It's not a fuel cell the way we think of fuel cell, like battery
It's
cells.
not like a battery recharging.
No, no. So you just fill it up, and then you have exceptionally long range because it's a relatively efficient reaction process versus the storage capacity. So fun fact about hydrogen: there's actually it's called the Toyota Mira, Mirai. And it has a range of 317 miles per fill up of hydrogen, and it's 50% more than the Tesla Model 3 on a single charge. So it's
Wow.
actually a greater distance it can
Suck
travel
on
on
that,
the same.
Ananda.
I know he's a Tesla. That's
Yes.
right. So that's what I have for hydrogen. What else do you have for hydrogen, James?
I thought you did a very good job as always,
Thank
Luke.
you.
Super, super good job. Oh, a couple things that I would add. Positives, no real bad emissions there. Negatives are the cost, as because it's kind of a costly process for us to create right now, but also the lack of fueling infrastructure that's available
Oh,
at the
do you want
moment.
me to hold? Do you want to talk about that now, or do you want me to
No,
do it
no,
at
no,
the
no,
end?
no. We can do that at the end.
Okay.
But I just wanted to mention that because of the very few options that we have out there right now,
It's the
in
worst.
in not so distant memory, two pumps have blown up, uh,
Ooh.
which is not cool. So maybe not a great option just yet, but it'll get there.
So there's someone standing at the pump smoking a cigarette. You're like, you idiot.
They always say don't smoke at the pump, and that's the reason
Yeah.
why.
Which
All
one do you
right.
have next, James?
I don't have them in a list of cool or not cool because I think
Okay.
everything is cool, but I do have ethanol as my next one.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah. E85 specifically.
I just have it as ethanol, but yeah,
Okay.
basically E85.
Okay. Shoot.
So it's alcohol-based fuel, which is okay in my book. It's made of. Don't drink it, kids. Do
No.
not drink it, and not until you're 21. It or ever. Jeez, it is made of renewable materials, like you mentioned earlier. Corn, barley, and wheat are some options there. Several blends. I think like even sugarcane is an
Yep.
option as well. Several blends of ethanol are used today, but E10 is super common. That's 10% ethanol and 90% gasoline. Other blends include like E15, and those are used in things from like cars from like 2001 and forward. And
Mm-hmm.
then E85, which I mentioned earlier, which is a quote flex fuel, that's used in vehicles that can operate on gasoline alone or a blend of 85% ethanol and 15% gasoline. I know even my truck is able to run off of E85. So I figure most vehicles at this point are able to do so.
So did you say that they make it by fermenting those crops to produce the alcohol?
I did not mention
Okay.
that,
Yeah.
but
So that's
yeah.
what they do. So they take, corn. Corn is the most common one, but they also do sugarcane and a handful of other ones, and they ferment it. I mean, basically, they're making like grain alcohol.
Mhm.
Whatever that is from the fermentation process, and then they do the mixing. I have a
Yeah.
fun fact about E85.
I would like to hear that fun fact.
So they claim, now granted, this was from an E85 page that was all about how eating. So you got to take
It
all
will
this stuff with a
save the
grain of salt.
world.
E85 reduces greenhouse gas emissions such as carbon monoxide by as much as 39 to 46%
Ooh.
compared to straight gasoline. It also reduces hydrocarbon and benzene emissions. And the reason is because ethanol is water soluble and biodegradable, unlike gasoline, and thus it burns much cleaner.
Thank you for that, Luke. And again, I beg all of you listening, please don't write in and tell me about all the bad things having to go along with this. Like the cropland used and the things. I don't need any of that. I promise. I get it. We're just kind of laying out the facts here for all of you.
We are.
Or at least what we see the facts to be. Producing ethanol is a super energy intensive process. So, although it is saving us there, it is very energy intensive. Resources are depleted in the process, which negatively impacts food prices and availability. The more opportunities for CO2 emissions also arise. So, in terms of fuel economy, so the relationship between the distance traveled and the fuel consumed by your vehicle, like the gas burnt up, we would think,
Mm-hmm.
ethanol contains about 1/3 less energy than gasoline, which I know has been a big complaint that people have had over the
Yeah.
years. So this means that the vehicle is going to typically run fewer miles per gallon or liter, depending on where you are, than a 100% gasoline powered vehicle would do. I started with all of mine, Luke. How do you fill it up? But it turns out that's really boring because it's always like, well, it's just like any
Put
liquid
the
fuel.
nozzle in the
Yeah,
tank.
exactly. So I stopped doing that one. Positives about it, the materials are renewable. Negatives, like we mentioned, it can impact food prices and availability.
Okay.
Before we move on to the next one,
Before
we move on to it, let's take a break for this week's word from our sponsor.
I have to assume this is the people that make E85, maybe Giant Eagle or whoever, because Giant Eagle and Sheets are the only two places I've seen it. So the Get Goes and the Sheets are the only two places I've seen E85.
Oh, I don't know. I can't remember the last time I went somewhere that wasn't one of those two places.
Yeah.
So that
Okay.
would make sense. We don't have a sponsor, but we do
Oh.
have some shout outs, which
Who do
is
we got?
just as good.
It's better,
would-
actually.
It is. It's
Better.
I'm glad that you value their shout outs more than money because I don't. Alex T is our first shout out. Looking to get that comp eng degree. So
Ooh.
yuck to that. I quit very quickly at Grand Valley State in Michigan.
Go Mud Ducks.
Yeah, Mud Ducks. I do know Alex forces all of his or her, I suppose, friends to listen to the podcast. So much appreciated. That's how
Is
we get most of
force
our
the
listens.
right word?
Allowing them the opportunity to enjoy
the pleasure.
podcast. Yes. Another shout out we have is from Britt W. from Lake Placid, one of 3 locations in North America that has a bobsled track. Britt has actually gotten to go down these tracks many times thanks to her dad and thinks that we would really enjoy the rush. So clearly, Britt does not know what a total pansy I am and that, like, I just know. No.
I would do that in a heartbeat. Oh my
Would
goodness.
you?
You could go down. That's an Olympic bobsled track. How
She said-
amazing would that be?
She said when she was a kid going down this track, it was like no sides on the sled. It was driven by a steering wheel. Like, it sounds
Super dangerous.
horrifying. Oh my goodness.
So Britt, I'm just gonna say that sounds like an invitation if I'm ever in Lake Placid. So you might
She said
be
she'd take us on a tour if we came.
getting a
so-
knock on the door.
Yeah, that sounds so scary. If any of you have anything really scary you want to tell us about, things you think that Luke would like that I clearly would not, like if it's not sitting on the couch, I'm out. Anyways, why don't you email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, and give us reviews. We love each and every one of them. And as usual, you can always ask your smart device very nicely by saying please and thank you to play the Unprofessional Engineering Podcast.
Please and thank you. All right, what do you have next on the cool list, Luke?
So my cool list is biodiesel. We got to go straight to
That is
that one.
cool.
And
Yeah.
there's different variations of this. The one I'm going to talk about specifically is B20. Apparently
Sounds
there's
like a vitamin.
it does, like B12. Apparently it's the quality of the materials that are the input to make the biodiesel.
Okay.
So biodiesel is made from, and this is right off the top of my head, it's made from an increasingly diverse mix of resources such as recycled cooking oil, soybean oil, animal fats, biodiesel, and other biofuels, and algae.
That's the one I was thinking of. Yes.
Yeah, so
I think that's fascinating.
it's very fascinating. It's highly renewable because it's coming from something, animals. You just got to shoot them, right?
There's PETA on us again.
There's PETA. No, but like soybean oil, cooking oil, a lot of times. So where this started, my understanding, unless you have some details on this, was this all started with like the French fry car, where some cat ran around all over. I think it was up in the Boston area. I might be totally wrong on this, but
Boston.
there was someone who was collecting up all the old French fry oil from restaurants, and he was, recycling this and turning it into fuel for his vehicle. It's basically a diesel vehicle. So most diesel engines currently can run biodiesel. Don't just put it in your tank. Double check, folks. But it's essentially diesel fuel that's produced from reusable sources, whether it's be vegetables, fats, recycled cooking oil. And algae is the newest one, which is kind of interesting. ExxonMobil is doing a lot of stuff there. I'll talk about that in a second. So biodiesel is made through a chemical process called transterification. Nailed it.
I'm sure
Whereby
you did.
whereby the glycerin is separated from the fat or vegetable oil. This process then leaves behind two products: methyl ester. Gee, oh my goodness, what is wrong with my mouth today? Which is the chemical name for biodiesel, and then glycerin. So they just make some soap out of the leftover stuff, which is those fancy glycerin soaps. Fun fact: ExxonMobil is targeting making 1,500 gallons of fuel per acre per year as a potential yield for the algae form of
Ooh.
their biofuel. That is 5 times more than sugar or corn. So the idea is
Wow.
you grow this algae in these ponds in a much smaller area. You don't need the bigger footprint, and you don't have all those resources that you talked about using up, and a lot more efficient. So tons of stuff. If you check out ExxonMobil's page, they got a ton of stuff on their biodiesel applications.
Very good. For some reason, back in the day, I got really interested in biodiesel, and I was actually looking at job opportunities for like, I don't know if I
When
was
you
in
mean back
like
in the day, you mean last week?
last week. Yeah. Troy, if you listen, this was not recently. Oh, I don't really remember when it was or why I was so interested in it, but the whole algae side of thing just seemed fascinating to me
Yeah.
that that's what we were doing, which it makes sense. A couple of positives. It's very safe, biodegradable, reduces air pollution and emissions, all that good stuff. Again, negative, limited production currently, though it sounds like our friends at what Exxon
ExxonMobil. Yep.
are going to fix that, and the distribution infrastructure. Um, that's very cool. I did wanted to give a shout out to ourselves. If you haven't checked out our gas versus diesel
We did talk
episode,
about biodiesel a little bit in that
yeah,
one, if I
yeah, go
recall.
check that one out. Lots more good information there. Okay, moving on to my not cool list or just list of things. I have natural gas listed. Did you see natural gas as an option?
I saw 2 different versions of natural gas,
Well, I'm
James.
going to go with this version, which
Do you know which one it is?
it comes in two forms, CNG and LNG.
So one is compressed natural gas and one is liquefied natural gas.
Wow, you are on top of things today.
I try to
Luke.
be.
Very good. So CNG, which is
Compressed natural gas.
because I was testing you, is natural gas that's compressed to less than 1% of its volume at standard atmospheric pressure. That's pretty impressive. And that's pretty compressive. Oh, goodness. And has a fuel economy that's comparable to gasoline. So that's cool. On the other hand, LNG, or the liquefied natural gas, um, in its liquid form, typically used to power kind of like medium or really heavy duty vehicles. It's used for that to travel long distances. Natural gas is very, very available, especially in the United States, for different utilities. It burns very cleanly. Bad thing, the vast majority of natural gas is a fossil fuel and a product of many, many millions of years to form this stuff. I don't know. Something happened to dinosaur pressure gas. I don't know.
Dinosaurs turn into tar, tar turns into oil, oil gets refined, and something like
And
that.
all that. Yeah. Oh, check out our episode on oil and natural gas. If
Ooh.
you haven't done that one, those industries are very interesting. Let's see here. Natural gas releases harmful methane, so that's not so good. Greenhouse gases 21 times worse than CO2. Storing natural gas is also kind of inconvenient. Its boiling point is well below room temperature, so it has to be stored in a vacuum, kind of like a cryogenic tank.
Mm-hmm.
So this all seems kind of dangerous for me to be driving around, don't you think?
Ah, the the fact that there's videos out there. So whenever I was so whenever I did this research, like there's like you have to almost be trained to fill up your vehicle. So there's a fair number of natural gas vehicles that you see out there. So like right around here in Pittsburgh, the some of the local natural gas suppliers, you'll see their vehicles and they have say
Yeah.
powered by clean natural gas or
Hmm.
whatever it is. But you pretty much got to go through like a class before like you're allowed to pump that gas. Like it's not just like you roll up to the gas station. It is you just put it in, but
It
I
is.
think it's really I don't know. It seems kind of weird to me that like gasoline works.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to do something that's going to be better
This feels
than
like an America play, doesn't it?
it
It's like we
does.
have all this natural gas, so let's make it happen.
Well, that's what a lot of it is. It's trying to reduce our dependence on foreign oil and
Yeah,
all that
that
sort of
makes
stuff.
sense,
So,
I guess.
fun fact about compressed natural
Ooh, let's
gas:
hear it.
a car can be driven up to 13 kilometers
Mm,
without having to refuel because most vehicles
13?
I'm sorry, 1,300
Oh,
kilometers. So that's
it's
about
like this
13
is
miles.
not impressive,
It's about
Luke.
13 miles. It's about 13 miles because most of these vehicles have dual fuel tanks. So as
Mm,
soon as the compressed natural gas runs out, you can just switch over to the regular petrol gas tank. I know you hate the word petrol.
I do.
Another fun fact, this one is for liquefied natural gas. So liquefied natural gas is super dense because it's the same thing, but it's liquefied. So it's very energy dense, more
Okay.
so than the compressed. And this makes liquid natural gas really well suited for super large, long distance travel. So like they talk about like class 8 and
Yeah.
class 7 trucks that are
Mhm.
traveling super long distances. So really, really good for that sort of thing.
Full disclosure, I kind of thought that you just swapped out your tank like you would your grill. Like, oh, throw my propane tank in there. I know propane's another option that you have. This is how I thought you would refuel. Turns out it's just kind of like gas, but different.
Yeah, yeah.
One other thing, you said that, people have to take classes basically to figure out how to fuel or fill this stuff up.
Mhm.
Remember back in the day when our buddy Ananda once again uh was allowed to fill up his own tank of gas in Portland, and
Yeah.
he was like, I don't know how to do that. How am I supposed to possibly know
Yeah.
how to do that? And I was like, what's wrong with you?
So
Like,
where I was in New Jersey, and New
Jersey, yeah.
Jersey is I don't know if it still is, but at one point I remember going through New Jersey and I pulled up and I went to get out of the car and I walked over and the guy was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." And I
Yeah, I did the same thing.
was like, "I'm getting gas." He's like, "We don't do that here." And I was like, "Okay."
Like, sorry, is
It
this
felt
just creating
weird.
jobs or
I don't know what it was. It
yeah.
was very weird.
Well, before we move on, Luke, let's take a break for this week's Luke's rant.
Okay, so this rant is all about this absolutely horrific, terrible weather that we have in Western Pennsylvania right now. So we're going on what is it,
Basically
James?
always.
It's
but
ridiculous. No, I see. I don't mind the Four Seasons, and I don't mean the band.
band.
I don't mean the band. I like that we get winter, and I like that we get spring and fall and summer. So we're right in that sweet spot where we have really hot days, really cold days. We get some snow, but we've had what is it now? We're going on maybe 2.5 weeks of gray, rainy, cold-ish, sometimes a little bit of snow, sloppy, wet. I mean, it's been so ridiculously miserable here. It's like I don't want to take my dog out for a walk because it's so nasty out and her feet get all wet and then I have to dry her feet off.
Yeah.
It's just the weather has just been absolutely terrible. And then I think to myself, like, why do I live here? Why do I live in Western Pennsylvania?
I ask that about you all the time.
And then I look at housing prices in other cities and I say, I know exactly why I live in Western Pennsylvania because it's one of the most economical and affordable places in the whole United States. Just saying.
Good job, Allegheny County.
Yeah, I feel like City of Pittsburgh
And
and
Westmoreland,
Allegheny County.
thank you.
Yeah, I feel like they should give us some credit here.
I think so too. Another sponsor opportunity.
Ooh.
Well, that was nice, Luke. I'm with you. This weather's crappy, and I'm ready for it to go away. Boom. Next, what's on your list?
So I have propane, and I literally have one sentence written down for propane. So this is going to be a short one. Hopefully, you have a little bit to add to
You
this.
go for it.
So here's the thing, folks. All of these fuel alternatives that we've talked about so far are identical to gasoline and diesel. It's an internal combustion engine. It's a different fuel source. It's how the fuel is made, how it's stored, the efficiency, all that sort of stuff. The only one that's different is the hydrogen, and hopefully, James, you have a few more after this, because for propane, it's called autogas. Interesting.
That's
All I have.
had?
That's all I have. I wasn't joking before when I told you that, but I do have some info about the propane. So propane has been for a very long time a fuel source for small engines and generators and backup generators. So reason being, if you think about, like, if you buy a generator for your house, you're going to go out and you're going to pour gasoline in it. And if the power's out, and it's going to run, and then at some point you're going to run out of gas, and you're going to have to run back out and fill it up with gas. If you hook and it's just a converter, you can run typically a regular generator. They have little conversion tools, and you can just hook it up to a propane line, and you have a generator that will run indefinitely on propane. Or natural gas. You can actually. So what happened was, for years and years and years, these generators were running on propane and natural gas. And we're like, why don't we turn vehicles into this? So there's actually a fair number of propane vehicles out there on the roads. I think I saw some number. There's 140,000 estimated propane, and that, I think that may have included natural gas vehicles too. 144,000 natural
Not
gas
a
and
lot.
propane vehicles. It's not a lot in the grand scheme of things, because I think there's 1 trillion cars in the world, is my guess.
Give or take. If you
Give
count
or
all the
take.
ones sitting in the dump,
I could be
probably,
right.
Yeah, probably not far
So
off.
that's propane.
That
That's
was
what I
good,
got.
Luke. Propane, liquid petroleum gas. It also goes by byproduct of natural gas processing and crude oil refining. Again, check out our episodes on that stuff if you are interested in such things. So probably won't go into a whole lot of detail there. Fun fact.
Ooh.
Actually, according to the UK Trade Association for the LPG industry, liquid petroleum gas, that is, that's the UK LPG. There are 1,400 LPG refueling stations across the country, compared to 8,500 filling stations worldwide. So they're kind of more all in on this than
I have a
the
whole
rest of the
thing
world.
on how you get to this stuff.
Okay, very good. So I will just kind of skip to the next thing, if that works okay for you.
Yep.
So you have no more to go through?
I didn't do any other ones, but what I do have is I have where to. So I probably need about 5 or 8 minutes, James.
I'm gonna bust through these ones because they're not real impressive to me. Methanol, also known as wood alcohol.
Wood.
Yeah, it doesn't sound real tasty. Moonshine, I guess. I don't know. Can be used as an alternative fuel in flexible fuel vehicles, are designed not to run on M85. Methanol can become an important alternative fuel in the future as a source of hydrogen needed for power cell vehicles. Negative, automakers are no longer manufacturing methanol powered vehicles. So it's an option. It just isn't used anymore. There's P series fuels out there as well. P series are a blend of ethanol and natural gas liquids. So just like another combination option that you have there. They mention steam as an option for cars. I guess so. Steam cars have been around since the 19th century, but they were replaced by models with internal combustion engines. I think there's probably a good reason for that. So I will say that it's an option, but yeah, they are external combustion engines where the fuel is combusted away from the engine, which helps for lowering emissions. But they blow up and they're not super reasonable, I don't think. There are many concepts for modern high powered steam vehicles out there, But again, I don't think we're going to see many of them coming around. I also have listed heat as an option, so thermoelectrical technology, really.
Ooh.
But so I know we said we weren't going to talk about electricity, but I thought this was kind of
Wouldn't work
interesting.
in Pittsburgh considering my recent weather report.
This is true. It converts heat into electricity and can help reduce this, like for several car makers. They have it under development. So they can help with this process. One solution is to use thermoelectric panels to convert pipe heat into electricity. So, like the exhaust pipes, the
Mm-hmm.
heat from those, you could use that to create electricity and therefore power your car, like a perpetual motion machine,
What?
but different because those don't exist.
Isn't that the thing where like the cat has like a thing on it where it's like chasing?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
perpetual. Okay.
I had a friend whose dad was big into perpetual motion machines, and it was basically like a big Ferris wheel that would spin and it would have weights that would then slide down, and that movement of the weight would continue to cause it to spin. So once you got it started, in theory, it would spin forever and continue to generate electricity. And they literally were going to go on a big family vacation overseas to go find this guy who claimed he had built a perpetual motion machine. I thought it was so bizarre.
Well,
Uh,
the only thing I'm going to say is you did pronounce it wrong. It's Ferris wheel.
a Ferris wheel. I forgot all about that.
Totally forgot.
If you
It's the
haven't,
Ferris wheel of all.
if you haven't checked out our episode on the Chicago World's Fair, go check that one out and you will get your fill of Ferris wheel. Nitrogen and liquid nitrogen stored in pressurized tanks that can produce heat to power high pressure gas is the last one that I wanted to talk about, other than the grease car. But go ahead with what you had, Luke.
Okay, so
The Ferris wheel.
the Ferris wheel of them all. So the one thing that is a challenge is where to find this stuff. So I'm going to
Okay.
go real quick where you get these fuels and like where they're located. So if you go to energy.gov, you can find this. So it's an alternative fuel source locator. So let's say you want to let's do hydrogen. That's the one we did first. There are only 45 hydrogen fueling stations in the United States, and they are
Whoa.
all in California. So there's actually a little consortium out in California that is trying to build this infrastructure. It looks like there's one in New York. Yeah, there is one single one. I'm sorry, in Connecticut rather. There's one in Connecticut. So,
Can
but
I
other
make
than
it from
that,
Connecticut to
no,
California?
you wouldn't make it.
Oh, hmm.
So that's hydrogen. Next one we talked about was, I think, E85. So E85, there are 3,717, and they are located predominantly in the Midwest. So Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, all the way through Tennessee. You get out west, and there's like virtually nothing in Wyoming and Utah and Arizona.
Really?
Picks up a little bit in California again, and there's nothing in north, southeast. There's nothing in the northeast as well. So don't know why. My guess is like the refinery places that make this, that just happens to be where they are.
I'm so sheltered. I just assumed it was everywhere.
No, E85. It's an interesting map. You folks should check it out. The next one we talked about was biodiesel. This one's kind of interesting, and I have no idea why. There's 303 biodiesel fueling stations in the United States. And I would bet 250 of them are in Minnesota. I have no idea why.
Isn't Minnesota like the land of lakes or something like that?
I guess I have no idea why Minnesota, but like when you
So
look on the
weird.
map, Minnesota is totally red with dots, and then there's just some sporadic dots in other locations. None in Western Pennsylvania.
Hmm.
The next one we talked about was compressed natural gas. There are 862. Again, Midwest California does pretty well. If you look in Oklahoma, pretty good. Liquid natural gas. This one's pretty bad. If you have a liquefied natural gas, there are 58 of them. A lot in California, few in Texas.
But you can drive really far with it, so
you
you're good.
And that's why these fueling
It's like truck
stations
stops.
are probably commercial fueling
Yeah.
stations, not passenger vehicle fueling
That
stations.
makes sense.
And then the last one is propane.
Okay.
And surprisingly, I don't know if this is just like propane places like Lowe's and Home Depot. I don't know if that's what I mean. This should specifically be for vehicles. I'm pretty sure the map is accurate. There's 948, and a lot of them are like U-Haul stations. So
Oh,
U-Haul is a company that rents trucks and vehicles. But yeah, so U-Haul, and
well,
there's again
isn't that
about 1,000,
interesting?
800, about 800, 950 of them across the United States. And then the last thing I have, and then you can do your French fry vehicle or whatever it was in October 2020. Here's the prices. Biodiesel, 229 a gallon. Ethanol, $1.69 a gallon. Propane, 273 a gallon. These units, I don't know what they are, folks. I apologize. Natural gas compressed is $2.18 EEG. Liquefied natural gas is $2.72 DEG. It's liquefied. I don't know why it's not a gallon.
Hmm.
So it varies. Ethanol is definitely the cheapest of all of them, but it also gets the worst mileage. To your
Right.
point, so it's not necessarily worth it. So they're all m- more expensive than right in line with gas, but a little bit less than diesel as of October 2020.
There we go. I have a mini rant for you,
Oh
Luke.
no!
I'm tired of pulling up to the gas pump and having 47 nozzles to choose from.
Oh my goodness!
I have come close to putting the wrong thing in the car before, so I can only imagine that my wife has done it wrong many times because she's not real good at paying attention to those things.
I didn't know it was possible, but my brother-in-law, who doesn't listen to the
Yeah.
show, so I can tease him. I think I told you.
Yeah.
I forget which way he did it. He put diesel into his gas or gas, and like one of the nozzles doesn't fit in the other, and because he had one
Right,
gas
right.
car and one diesel car, and like it just totally ruined the vehicle. They had to like drop the tank and do all this crazy stuff to get it out, and it was just the car was never the same again. So
Ugh. So the grease car vegetable fuel system, Luke, it is the premier US developer. That's the name of it, the Grease Car
okay,
Vegetable Fuel System. It was founded by Justin Carvin
Timberlake.
in 2000.
Oh,
Justin Timberlake's cousin, Justin Carvin. It converts straight vegetable oil into fuel for us, or it uses that as fuel, but it basically changes a diesel powered vehicle into a vegetable oil mobile.
nice.
The goal is to bring thousands of cleaner vegetable oil powered vehicles to the road. And the way it works is the grease car system, it's a two tank fuel system. The vehicle's existing diesel tank and filter will supply diesel fuel to the engine at startup and shutdown. After startup, radiator fluid will transfer heat from the engine to the heat exchangers in the grease car fuel system. These heat exchangers will heat the vegetable oil up,
Has
which
to be higher
probably
temperature. Yeah.
it does. Yeah, has to and smells good probably. It turns out you won't smell like French fries afterwards. But
Oh,
anyways, it heats up the vegetable oil in the fuel filters, lines in the fuel tank. The heat will reduce the viscosity of your vegetable oil so that it's similar to diesel and can be injected. That's the noise it makes.
it is. That's the noise it makes.
Yes, into the engine properly. When the vehicle is being shut down for a period long enough for the fuel to cool down to, not a good temperature, the vegetable oil must be purged from the fuel system, which doesn't seem ideal,
It seems like a
and
pain.
replaced with diesel for the next startup. Purging generally takes 30 seconds, so not so bad, and can be done while driving with the push of a button.
Huh.
Maybe it just like dumps it on the road behind you, like Donkey Kong in Mario Kart throwing a banana peel out there. So that's how it works. If you go to www.greasecar.com, you can find out about how much it costs and how it's done.
But you have to have a diesel vehicle to begin with because it
You need a
converts.
diesel.
Okay.
Yep. And it still relies on that diesel for part of the process.
Okay. Okay.
Interesting stuff, though. Hopefully, everyone else here that was listening, here with us listening, thought this was interesting as well. I learned a lot of stuff, like you don't just put a new propane tank in the back of your car and drive around with it. So, good information to have. If you found something interesting, if you think we said something wrong that's worth correcting, which we probably won't do anyways, or you just want to say hi, why don't you email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com? And until next time.
See it.